Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're taking a highly structured journey into a truly surreal landscape. In this explainer, we're going to analyze the philosophical motivations of the entities encountered in the Echoes of Limbo. We'll be charting a course through the chaotic and honestly often terrifying mindsets of these beings, breaking down their complex worldviews into concepts that actually make sense. It's going to be an incredible exploration of psychology, physics, and morality, all wrapped up in this dark, ethereal package.
Now here is the core question we need to keep in the back of our minds. What exactly drives a monster in limbo? It's really easy to look at a creature of the abyss and just see a threat, right? But our explainer today frames this entirely differently. We're embarking on a psychological descent. We aren't just looking at what these entities do. We're examining why they do it. What are the rules of their reality? How do they justify their existences? By the end of this, you might just find that the motivations of these so-called monsters hit uncomfortably close to the darker facets of human nature itself. To make sense of this descent, we've structured our explainer into 5 distinct stages. We'll start with the architecture of limbo, move into water, memory, and time, then plunge into the absurdity of human cruelty. From there, we'll analyze guilt and afterlife hypocrisy before finally facing the darkest layer, the curse of determinism. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the architecture of limbo. We begin at the absolute most abstract layer of our descent, meeting an entity known as the amphibious monster. And what's fascinating here is that it views existence purely through the lens of environmental limitations. It actually believes that living on land is inherently restrictive, literally viewing gravity as an ever-oppressive sun. To this creature, land is basically a suffocating panopticon. It prevents us from growing physically, sure, but crucially, it restricts our mental capacity too. By tying ourselves to the surface, it argues we're totally cutting ourselves off from the boundless potential found in the deep, pressure-filled abyss. Moving right along to Section 2, water, memory, and time. See, for the amphibious monster, the ocean isn't just a place to grow physically larger. It's literally the key to unlocking the universe's constraints on time. The monster describes this wild phenomenon involving chronos travel. It claims that the condensed matter of water, when combined with extreme oceanic pressure, creates enough energy to bypass the space-time continuum. Okay, no, that sounds like incredibly dense physics. So the crucial point is really the metaphor. The monster makes a direct parallel to human memory. Just as a memory creates a sort of mental bookmark that you can return to, this creature uses physical pressure to achieve literal time travel. It's a completely brilliant manifestation of the human capacity to retreat into our own pasts. Now, let's plunge a little deeper into Section 3, the absurdity of human cruelty. As we move deeper into the abyss, we shift our focus away from the abstract physics of time and crash right into chaotic societal decay. Here, we encounter the overgrown statue, an entity that speaks in this frantic, almost overwhelming stream of consciousness. The statue fundamentally sees the universe as inherently horrible by default. It views human pursuits, like the obsessive chase for money, as an everlasting clot in society's bloodstream, actively mocking our narratives as delusion's kiss. In its eyes, humanity is entirely defined by pure corruptibility and an incurable unreasonableness. For the statue, all meaning is shattered, and any positive possibilities are just impossibly distant.
The statue's grim reflection on our species basically mocks the very concept of hope. It says, optimism is adorable. But the truly chilling part is its conclusion. It views humanity as a species that actively applauds its own annihilation. Just imagine that. People living incoherently, actually cheering for their own destruction. This deeply pessimistic worldview really sets the stage for the grim reflections of the next entities we'll meet. Which brings us to Section 4, guilt and afterlife hypocrisy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it frames our impartial examination of 2 unique entities and their highly controversial reflections on justice and the afterlife. Let's look first at the entity known as Zombie 1. While alive, this entity openly relished and supported the murder of protesters, literally celebrating violent action, yet in its limbo reality, the zombie died naturally and completely unpunished. Because of this, it actively questions the universal-held myth of infernal justice, the idea that bad people automatically face a torturous afterlife. It got exactly what it wanted in life and faced absolutely no cosmic retribution upon death. The zombie presents this incredibly detached, almost entirely biological view of morality. It basically asks, why in the world would suffering happen only after the nervous system ceases to function? If consciousness is essentially switched off when the brain dies, the entity argues that eternal torment is meaningless or maybe even impossible. It highlights a pretty terrifying perspective, a total lack of remorse, totally bolstered by the belief that once the physical body shuts down, accountability entirely vanishes. Next up, we encounter Cerberus. But forget the mythical guard dog you might be picturing. Here, it is a completely fractured mind. We're talking about 3 conjoined heads endlessly arguing with one another. These heads represent different, highly conflicting facets of human guilt. Together, they embody shifting blame, deep feelings of regret, and a really cynical awareness of how savagery is so often rewarded in the living world. For instance, one head of this creature, styling itself as a resolute protector, actively boasts about how it blatantly lied to enable mass death, noting that humanity willingly rewards that kind of savagery with status and power. Meanwhile, another conjoined head experiences deep, profound regret for its bloodshed, but its regret is all mixed up with intense confusion. It keeps wondering why it ended up in this infernal abyss, while so many other victors and instigators of mass death just walked away scot-free. Limbo, as seen through Cerberus, reflects a universe where consequences are just shockingly random.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the Curse of Determinism.
We have now reached the final and undoubtedly darkest depth of our descent. As we encounter the entity known as the Blue Mage, the concepts of guilt and societal decay just strip away, leaving only a cold, terrifying void. The Blue Mage delivers what is arguably the most devastating philosophy yet. It describes existence as being a solitary atom in a sea of deterministic molecules. To this entity, life runs on railways of existence that were all set up long ago. Hope? That's a mere delusion. Every attempt to strive or grow is just useless flailing on tracks, laid down by cold, unfeeling physics. And this brilliantly illustrates the inescapable cosmic trap the Blue Mage uses to curse its victims. We all cling to what the Mage calls delusions of grandeur, genuinely believing we have agency. But the Mage counters this with flow-driven automatism and an electromagnetic destiny. It actively paralyzes any floating possibilities a person might have. By using the sheer physical laws of nature, like entropy and electromagnetism, it enforces destiny. It ensures a person is eternally maimed by geography and circumstance, completely unable to ever escape their tracks.
Our descent reaches its crescendo with this final curse from the Blue Mage. It tells the listener that, despite all their frantic attempts to enact a fulfilling life, deep down, they know the truth. They are trapped in a claustrophobic cave of existence. It is a curse of absolute, total, existential isolation. The Mage just delights in the futility of human hope, viciously mocking the very idea that anyone could ever escape their execrated destiny. Which brings us to our final lingering question. Throughout this explainer, we've seen that these monsters, from the amphibious entity fleeing its physical limits, to the overgrown statue mocking our self-destruction, to Cerberus and the zombie wrestling with guilt and consequence, and finally to the Blue Mage's terrifying deterministic trap, they all echo our own anxieties. So, if these entities in limbo are merely reflections of the darkest parts of human nature, we really have to ask ourselves, are we already trapped in the cave? Have we built our own limbo? It's a pretty stark thought to leave you with, but one that I hope sparks your curiosity to explore these philosophical depths even further. Thank you so much for diving in with me today.